welcome everyone. Hopefully everybody's still awake. This session is about China, which I feel really passionate about, and to the point that I actually flew all the way from Shanghai 1 week ago. After everything that happened in China for the first time in 3 years. Be able to travel outside of China, which is a really weird feeling, and I haven't seen this many people in a room for the longest time. I know that China hasn't been really positioned ourselves as the most friendly country, or all the news that you've heard internationally, right? And I'm not saying that it's like the North Korea, because technically not. Today, when I was talking to somebody, they're like, wow, you fled. I'm like, yeah, I did, but everything's actually going okay. So despite what you've heard in the news, China is actually thriving. And today we have 3 amazing China experts sitting over here, with us just to talk about what's really happening in China in the music, sports, and especially in the metaverse scene, right? So let's kick off the conversation. Woohoo! Alvin, how's it going in Shanghai?
Hey, Brittany, Andrew, and Andrew. Good
Yeah.
to see you guys.
Looking good, Alvin. Love the facial hair.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta stand out. You have a twin. You have all these special features, and you know all the stars. It's all I got is my facial hair.
It's facial hair. Well, according to you, this is a triple A kind of panel. We have Alvin, we have Andrew, and Andrew. I might get the names mixed up a little bit, but don't mind me. So yeah, Alvin, you're like the most popular guy in China, actually, right? Because since I've mentioned there's no offline events, but I've only seen events in metaverse or about the metaverse. So literally, you're like the most popular guy in China. So I guess I would start with you in terms of the trend of metaverse, right? Like, what have you been doing? What has HTC has been doing? And what's the trend?
Yeah, I think definitely the last 2-3 years has been a very positive for the XR industry, the metaverse space. It's the COVID situation actually helps to accelerate the virtualization of people's lives. So, all the students going online to take, to go to school, all the adults going online to go to work. And I think that just takes us one step closer to this metaverse future that people are talking about. And over the last, year and a half, the metaverse term has become very popular. And China is probably actually one of the hottest places where it has really been adopted. If you look at the Google Trends, I think China is like number 1 or number 2 for all of the metaverse related terms for the recent years, where a lot of kind of Web3 and NFT terms have actually gone down in the last 6 months globally, but in China it continues to be very, very high. I think in terms of a major trend is actually now the government is very supportive of this metaverse adoption. And I think that's something that very few
why they're locking us down even more, Alvin? I'm just kidding. But
yeah, so very few other countries in the world have actually government endorsement for a technology. And China's been kind of ahead of the game with EV, with mobile internet. And now I think they're trying to say, hey, we want to take advantage of this new trend to give our population an edge in the long-term economy as the world becomes more and more digital. So I think that's kind of the key differentiation of what's happening. But in terms of hardware adoption, in terms of more companies building stuff, that's happening everywhere. And the virtualization of people's lives, I think that's happening everywhere.
But I don't know if everyone knows, I think the notion of Web3 and metaverse in China is a little bit different than the rest of the world. As you know, that in China, we do everything with Chinese characteristics. So Alvin, would you like to kind of share with everyone the differences between, the terms metaverse and Web3 in China?
Yeah, so I do want to help clarify. A lot of people confuse or conflate metaverse with Web3. And at the end of the day, at least in my mind, I think in the minds of most experts, there are actually 2 different parallel tracks of 2 major trends in technology that will both have, I think, significant impact in our lives, but they're not the same thing. The metaverse is really more about the 3D-ization of the internet that we've been building and creating a more immersive or kind of a spatial interface for us to get onto the internet. Whereas I think the Web3 trend is really more about the decentralization of finance and having more ownership, personal ownership of content, of rights. So they're completely 2 independent trends, but they do in some cases come together. And in China, most of the Web3 type use cases that are happening in the West are actually somewhat illegal, and they have their own forms, their own chains here. So blockchain is actually very much endorsed, but not the public chains that are happening in the rest of the world, because the government wants to have some say in terms of how blockchain is being applied. So I think, we can get into more details later, but I do want to kind of clarify the difference between Web3 and Metaverse, and also that, the China's version of Web3 is a little bit different than the kind of Western version.
Right. So thank you, Alvin. I guess we'll move down to Mr. Andrew Collins in terms of, Andrew.
Don't ask me about the metaverse, please.
So what's going on in the sports? No, I'm just kidding. So Andrew, you've done the deal of the century in China with the Endeavor, with the Mailman merch. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that to begin with?
You said you weren't going to ask me about that. No, what are you asking me?
I'm asking you about the Endeavor deal with Mailman.
What do you want to know?
Anything.
Okay.
Top 3 points. Why did Endeavor choose you as opposed to all the other agencies out there in China?
There's just so many agencies to choose from in
Yeah.
China. No, but I'm very proud to be recently sold our business Mailman to Endeavor. So we've been integrating with them globally across our China business, which is our HQ. We started the business in China over 15 years ago now. And that's where I attribute most of my grey hair to. I moved here 2 years ago as we were working on the deal with Endeavor, and it's been great ever since. They're a huge sports and entertainment conglomerate who are passionate about what we do, and we're happy working with them. Is that good corporate speak?
It's not corporate speak at all. I don't know anybody from Endeavor actually, but it's just very interesting when we hear about big deals like this, especially in the sports industry, and also Mailman is a digital agency. Is that right?
Yes, we don't need to promote our company though.
I see.
It's okay.
I see.
We're good.
But anyway, Andrew, tell us about the trends in the sports scene.
I think you were going to ask me what's bothering you today, or what are the challenges in China, and so I think
challenges.
Okay, Brittany. By the way, we used to be colleagues. That's why we joke a lot. And Alvin, I've known for 15 years, so it's literally like just chatting at home with friends. But if you ask me what's challenging in China today, what matters, I think the media landscape, the sports media landscape and the broadcast landscape is still hasn't changed too much in 10 years. Although there's been many ups and downs and there's shifts in who are the major players, this getting stability and a linear increase in rights and broadcast fees is still very unstable, and it's still yet to be matured. So we're just starting to see a shift in strategy from major sports organizations like the Bundesliga or La Liga, FIFA even. So I think media rights being usually the number one generator of income for global sports in China, and it still has so much maturity and adoption to be made in China. It's still creating a lot of headaches for professional sports in China. I think a good example of where you're seeing this stress is you're seeing FIFA and La Liga in the last 6 months have both launched an OTT platform.
On their own.
On their own. Well, they've partnered with the Chinese licensee to enable the OTT, the online broadcast. But they're looking to create a direct-to-consumer model, a direct-to-consumer opportunity. So that we're going to see how that plays out. CCTV are back broadcasting the NBA after a 12-month hiatus, or nearly 2-year hiatus.
Right, finally back.
Finally back. They're supporting European football as well. They have the World Cup, but largely across the board, outside the top NBA, Premier League, it's still a very challenging broadcast market for sports, as Chinese consumers are still, we're still waiting to see their eagerness to pay for sports content.
Right.
Yeah, as they are. The entertainment category, with what we could probably talk on, it's much more mature, and people are willing to pay for that. But sports still has a long way to go.
Right, and in China, traditionally, the media rights landscape has been very fragmented, right? Every single year, you don't know which platform you're going to get onto or where you're going to watch the EPL the next season. And this year, for FIFA, the World Cup actually struck a deal with Douyin, right? And they're going to be the streaming platform for all the game. As a short form platform, we don't know how it's going to come out because it's not on TV, it's not OTT, right? So I think definitely this is something for us to explore, to see another sort of, I guess, fragmentation or maybe the future of sports rights with short-term platforms.
Yeah, and we're seeing like Kuaishou, the short form video platform, become much more important in helping other second and third tier sports emerge and become more popular. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but Ultimate Frisbee over the past 12 months have been
super popular.
Huge. Alvin, have you played Ultimate Frisbee yet in China?
Yeah,
You have,
but
right?
actually, there's a field next to my apartment that every night there's just full of people playing Ultimate.
Right.
It's something that just popped up over the last year.
It's
so
blowing up.
crazy.
Like it's absolutely blowing up.
How did it get so popular?
Well, it's also, it's an easy sport to play, low barriers to entry. You can play on a football field. It's, so it's just accessible, but it's also very social. So you got a lot of people playing and following and capturing it on whether it be Weibo, WeChat, Douyin or Kuaishou, and sharing that content, and it's becoming has a real cult following in China. So yeah, there's some wins out of the
absolutely
yeah.
the lockdown. But yeah, well, thank you so much, Andrew. We'll move on to Mr. Andrew Chen, all the way from New York this morning, landing at 5 o'clock, right?
Exactly, 19 hours, right?
Wow, and just for the conference, this is incredible. And Andrew has whole group of fanboys and fangirls over there. Woo! Let's get yeah. So Andrew, tell us about the music scene in the past 3 years, right? What's the trend have you seen, and what has Sony Music has been doing in China?
I think I totally agree on what Alvin and Andrew mentioned about it. China is really a unique country. I think on any aspect of the business, they also have the uniqueness. And then on the music side, I want to share with you that based on the IPI, the recently the report on 2022, China already is ranked number 6 on the music business in the world.
Wow.
Okay. And on the DSP side, on the paid subscription, I think China is the country which have owned more paid subscribers, which is already reached to 120 million. Okay.
Wow.
And I still remember that when I stepped in this music industry in 2009, and then still nothing about the paid subscriber. In 2014, maybe have some around 2.4 million, but you can see right now 15 times. So you can see that the growth, the movement of the China is very fast and have more opportunity because it's compared to a 1.4 billion population. I think still have a lot of things we can grow on this. And just like what Andrew mentioned, I think about it is on the DSP side, they are not only working on their role just like TME and NetEase, it's just like the streaming platform. They also going to create their content.
Absolutely.
I think the fact is because they think China is not only one way to have the content. They should be in more diverse. So I think long time ago, I can say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the decentralization on the music side in China already happened. But how it will be going on, I think as a content provider, as a very powerful, knowledgeable, the content provider in the group, I think that we need to also diversify ourselves. So that's the reason why that, on the past, we also have several different kind of the content production in different way. We work with the DSP side together, just like last year, or our Adele, the 30, the album, we are using in the form of the digital album, working with them. So it became the most successful album selling in China last year. Wow. And also, just like what Andrew mentioned also, is about the Douyin, the social media.
Absolutely.
You can see that the Douyin, the affection, not only seems to just like in the group, in TikTok, doing the same thing. They are not only provide the social media stuff for the peers is going to communicate. I think they also provide for those artists, producer, indie, singer-songwriter, they can going to make the song, promote the song, and use the compelling video plus the active, the sound to mix together to go into social life with their peers. So actually, then we are also based on this one is no more just like we create on the artist-based music only. We are create on the track song only. And the last year that we also have some several projects get very successful, just like our own artists have their song named in future. And just on the Douyin already have within 1 month already have 400 million
Wow.
the streaming view. So you can see that this country, that is a very unique country.
Absolutely.
And then I believe that just like what Alvin mentioned, I think they already step in and looking forward and see how the Web 3.0 metaverse or immersive concept, how it will going to be happen. But I think just like you can see the subscriber, the growth, you can see, I think within 1 or 2 years, it will be another picture of the China.
Wow, is another picture of China. So speaking of Douyin, I think as you mentioned that there are a lot of talent actually being discovered or promote their content over there. A lot of emergent artists coming from these short platform, would you say they are your competitors, or would you actually work hand in hand with them? Or are you guys friends
You
or
mean
foes?
with the Douyin or with?
With Douyin, for example, I think they have a sort of, I guess they call it a content label called Start Nation, right? Where they actually have handpick like the artists and the talent on Douyin, and then they form like a record label and they do A&R, they release the content, that sort of like business model. Would you see that as a threat as Sony Music?
I think I won't, maybe if I say 1-2 years ago, I will see it's a threat. But just like what I mentioned about it, for us, we have to still think about how to diversify ourselves. So I already think how I can adopt.
I see.
I can work with them together. I think that is most important. So that's why just I mentioned again is actually that I have a big fan of the project working with Douyin since last year.
Right.
And just like I mentioned about the Infusion is one of our own IP song, but we also work with Douyin together. We have 3 different kinds of the new release to be happening in this year, January, February, and August. Also get a smash the high streaming unit. So I think I was looking for is the cooperation, collaboration. Instead, I'm sit here and then wait and see what else I can go into, tackle with them. No, I think the alliance is more important.
Right, you have to take a proactive approach, right? Working along with these platforms and form new business models to see where the opportunity lies in, right? So, but I think that's quite interesting. So I guess let's talk about talent. Maybe Alvin, maybe we'll come back to you later. And Chinese talents, right? Maybe because China has been closed for 3 years. From what I've seen is in the sports industry, the likes of Eileen Gu, right, for winter sports, or we have the Chinese golfer or tennis players have been taking the international stage by storm. And also in the singing, I guess, in your industry with the music industry, like the likes of Jackson Wang, right, who is a total heartthrob, and as the international aesthetic has showed an appreciation towards the Asian aesthetic, people who loves BTS or Blackpink has going crazy about Jackson Wang, and his act on the Coachella stage was absolutely amazing, right? When he said, China, I'm from China, I was like tear up a little bit, right? So let's talk about Chinese talent. Is this the trend that you've seen in China for the past 3 years? China's really gearing towards, having, great talents, made in China, who are made in China. Andrew?
I mean, I won't talk about the entertainment category, but in terms of sports, there's no greater pathway or form of inspiration, right, for the local people of China. And I think one of the greatest sports stars to emerge was Lina, tennis player.
Right.
Lina. She really, not only did she win the hearts and minds of all China, she was also really widely adored around the world. She was such a beautiful personality. And she was such a great ambassador for tennis. And then she motivated and inspired a generation of young female tennis players. And so we're seeing that happen now in even Formula One. There's active Chinese drivers. There's golf is emerging. Basketball is, still living off the Yao Ming era.
Yao Ming era.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people, we still live in this hope that star is just around the corner. And China has a great structure to support and develop sports talent, because they also understand that getting these athletes like Li Na on an international stage is such a great projection for the country.
For the country,
yeah,
soft power, right?
Yeah, soft power. It's just also just a great representation of the types of people that China have. So yeah, like any of these fields, including entertainment, like it's the stars really that lead the way and empower not only the individual to want to do it, but also it shows the parents that, hey, you can make a career in this. You know what it's like in China. There's got to be the money.
It's got to
Where's
be
the money?
Yep.
Yeah,
Show me the money.
So it's a great, so stars are just so important, aren't they?
Right, absolutely. So in the music industry, I've seen so many Chinese artists, right? Even rappers, because rapping music is just so popular in China. People just love the culture, right? So are you looking to produce more of Jackson Wang, that type of Chinese talent that goes internationally?
I think on the music side, I will say what we are looking for is I always talk to my team and also even to my senior executives say, why K-pop can be so successful and all over the world, everyone in America, that even though I just back from New York and then, all my boss and talking about, hey, K-pop, K-pop, K-pop. Then I would talking to myself, when C-pop can coming?
Right.
When C-pop can going
over.
to be made in, that all over the world. I think that is what part of my career dream, I have to say in that way. But I think on whatever to say, Jackson, Lay, they doing. I think really, really grateful for. They are willing to they spend their time to stick in America, stick in Europe side, and then that to do a lot of the the PR stuff or even the performance to let the people know how C-pop is okay. It's a coming trend on those things. And actually, that again, we also already started. And we have the young artist, is a young girl talent named Suri Su, okay?
Right.
And she's from one of the variety show, the audition program, Girl Planet 999, okay? And she can speak a very fluent Japanese. So I write on this, her talent, and also based on our background, the Sony music. So we have the group support. So we work with SMEJ together. We release her first Japanese song last year, and amazing that is, after Teresa 10, she's the first one on the Omicron get top 10 selling.
Oh, wow.
So I think we already adopt on this kind of the practice. We wanted to export more the young artists to the world and try to see how C-pop and also the C-pop artists can win the game.
Right, absolutely. So Alvin, going back to you finally. I think last week when we were catching up, you actually provided a lot of solutions in terms of how to utilize metaverse or Web3 to engage with, regardless of sports fans or music fans, right? Some of the strategies. So would you give, some advice around, along those lines, in terms of fan engagement through, metaverse or Web3 or NFT?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of different things. There's kind of two different factors here in terms of how to use the metaverse and how to use the Web3 technologies. Like you said when you started, there's a lot of virtual events that are happening, and pretty much every major event, there's going to, even ones that have physical events, they're actually having a parallel twin in the metaverse or in a virtual platform to allow people to engage who aren't able to make it. Because even though some events are now starting to happen, physical offline events, they just aren't able to do it at the scale that they used to. If you look at even things like China Joy, you know very well. That's like 400,000 people come.
Absolutely.
But this year they actually had the entire thing virtually because because of some of the outbreaks that happened, they kind of stopped the offline event. But pretty much every major event now has this backup plan, and in some cases it becomes the main plan of having a virtual version where you have the same speakers. Instead of having video, you might have avatars of these speakers come up in there. And then now what's interesting is the audience is not just listening to like in video type events. All you're doing is the audience listens to the speakers. But in a virtual kind of metaverse type 3D event, the audience can actually talk to each other. And I found friends, inside some of these virtual events, and we've taken pictures together. We chatted kind of on the side like we do in physical events. I think that kind of engagement actually brings a lot more closeness to the participants than a video type format does. Now, in terms of engagement for brands using some of the Web3 technologies, because Web3 and NFTs don't really have a official secondary market here. There is some kind of offline trade that people do in WeChat groups and other things that are sort of shady. But what a lot of brands are doing is essentially creating either free or very low cost tokens, which then allows them to take that token to create a loyalty program with their fans or with their customers. And I think that kind of an engagement model actually makes a lot of sense for brands, because people will kind of collect all of these different things, and they're not sure. At some point it might be worth something, but even then, it didn't cost me much to do it. So it's kind of a fun way for me to keep in touch. So I think that type of a model is what's being used today. So it's a very different engagement process than you have with Western type platforms. And here, most of the kind of metaverse related players are really, they're not really trying to do things like land sales or avatar sales. They're trying to create content that engages customers. So I think that's something that's actually pretty interesting and more valuable long term. And one good thing that's happening is now we have devices that look like this that are coming out.
Is that an
We've
HTC
had
device?
This device that came out end of last year, but I think tomorrow, ByteDance, who owns TikTok or Douyin, they will be coming out with their device that is also a thin and light device. SVR or another company that's also. So pretty much every major company, I think next 2 weeks, Meta is going to come out with their thin and light device. So the comfort level and the ease of use of these devices are going to be significantly better over the next half year to a year, which will bring a new level of adoption. So I'm really excited about the potential of what this will do. In fact, I mean, just yesterday, or actually just last Friday, I went to a middle school and they had an assembly where they had several hundred eighth graders come and talk to me about their kind of metaverse club and how, they asked me a lot of very sophisticated questions for very young kids. So there's huge interest and demand at all age levels for what this technology can do and how it's going to impact lives. So I think China is definitely going to be one of the early adopters of this in their daily lives.
Thank you, Alvin. Yeah, Andrew?
Good work, Alvin. I just wanted to ask Andrew a question before we wrap up, because I see the time coming up here. You see, in the last 12 months in China, celebrity culture got smacked in the face, by government and a lot of mostly film stars, but this big celebrity culture was being really questioned by government. Like, was it healthy for young people? They made a crackdown on gaming, restricted the amount of time that young people can be gaming to a certain amount of time every week. Celebrity culture was sort of, how would you say?
It's pretty much monitored.
It was discouraged anyway.
Discouraged,
it was discouraged. The celebrity culture. Have you seen that effect on your business in China?
I think definitely the thing is because, that I can share is, I think 3 years before it still is really idol dominated in China, the business. But just like what you mentioned about that, that during this COVID, that 2 years, that government keep changing the policy about how to, suppress the entertainment, the idol culture and those things. So that's why that, that we will change our direction. Just like I mentioned about, I changed to the track-based direction. And the other thing is just like, again, actually that we also step into the Web 3.0 direction. Just like in August, we just announced we have working with the Haruno Miku, which is a worldwide pop virtual idol, which is produced from Japan, and then we will going to release her song within this year. So we can see that why I totally agree on what Alvin mentioned about that. China is already in the decentralized on different kind of the business aspect. How we have to adopt this is the most important thing that we have to think about. Don't think about we sit and wait and see how the government change the policy. What I think that we need to be in advance to think about how we can adopt this whole quick, rapidly changing environment.
Right. Well, unfortunately, time's up. I see the clocker, but we still may have some time for questions from the floor if anybody is interested in knowing more about China and the scene. Any takers? Okay. Yeah, well, we could certainly meet at the bar later, as Andrew put it. But I guess this is it. This is the 3 A's of panel and with Brittany. So let's just wrap it up. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alvin, for dialing.
Thank you, everybody. Good to see you, Alvin.
Andrews.